Hey everybody, this is Dylan. I wanted to do a quick Q&A video because it's been quite a while since I've taken questions in the Facebook group. And I'm going to be at the farm doing the farm solar system for the next few weeks. The steel structure is going up, so I'm going to be around for that. And I'll try to take some good video and make a video of that along the way here. But I'm going to be really busy, unpredictable, so I just wanted to get a video up with some good solid content. So let's jump right into some questions. Number 1 from Susan: how do you handle eating out? This is a pretty common question. The best way to handle eating out is just to not do it ever, but I do eat out. Elise and I eat out sometimes. If there's a family event that is an eat out, we will go. I've been known to eat before, so I will just make dinner at home and get pretty full and then go to the restaurant and I'll just have like a side salad. That bothers some people sometimes, but I don't care. They know how I eat pretty much, so it doesn't bother me that much anymore. You can try to modify things on the menu, but it's really not that fun. It's more embarrassing, well, for lack of a better word, to have to modify something to a server who has no idea what you're talking about than to just order a side salad with no cheese and no dressing and just eat lettuce and pay $10 for a bowl of lettuce. Sometimes Elise and I go to this restaurant called The Loving Hut, which is a vegan restaurant, but their normal menu is vegan junk. A lot of fake meats and stuff like that. And so back when we were kind of getting started and when Nick was getting started, he had called over to The Loving Hut and asked if they could make something oil-free. And they ended up putting together an entire oil-free menu. They took their normal menu items and they put some codes on there for their staff to type it into the POS and make it oil-free. So that was really cool. So sometimes we'll go there like maybe once a month, but it's really, really salty. It may be oil-free, but it is very high sodium. So we try not to go there very often, but sometimes it's nice just for a little break. I don't know. Also from Susan: how do you handle going to dinner parties or a cookout, etc.? Well, if it's a dinner party, hopefully you can take your own food. I can't think of a dinner party I've gone to where we haven't taken our own food since we've been eating this way for the past couple of years. So I would say make sure that everybody's cool with you taking your own food. If it's some kind of a formal dinner party and you're absolutely, well, first there's 2 versions of this, right? There's the vegan version and then there is the actual healthy version. So if you have an oil cheat once in a while, you can go, as long as it's vegan, you can go to a dinner party and have some oil. But if that's totally out of the question for you, that is great. I support you. But make sure you can take your own food because most people don't want to provide oil-free items for you to eat. But when people really start to get to know the way that you eat, like my family members, sometimes they'll have a salad and they won't put the dressing on it, or cheese. Or they will do baked potatoes and I'll be able to just eat baked potatoes, plain. So that's really nice if your family is willing to provide you with that at a dinner party. That just depends on the relationship you have, how normal you are in the family, like how long you've been eating this way, and how normalized they've become to it. That's what I really mean. And so if you're eventually, I think most people get to the point where their family sort of understands and they're cool with it, and maybe they'll make you something if they weren't cool with you taking stuff, but usually that same family would be totally cool with you taking stuff. So the moral of the story here is take your own food. And if you're going out to eat and you don't want to have a cheat, like an oil cheat, then you got to eat before, preferably, or else eat after. But if you're eating after, that means that you went hungry the entire meal and you're staring at everybody else's plate, and that probably gets a little bit obvious. So I say eat before, or even in the car, in the parking lot, right before you go in the restaurant. I've done it many times. Cherry, thoughts on algal flour most notably used in vegan egg. Okay, this is a good chance to talk about, we've gotten a really common question about what does processed mean and what does processed food mean. With the case of the vegan egg, there are so many other egg replacement. I don't know what algal flour is off the top of my head, I'd have to look it up, but there's such a simple solution, and that is to make a flax egg for baking, to use applesauce for baking. Anything like that will do just fine. Like in my oat clusters or the banana bread recipe that I have, I'll put a link to. Those I just used either applesauce or ground up flaxseed mixed with water. It makes kind of a nice thick paste once it sits, and it acts as a really good binder like the egg would have done. So there are other solutions, but if you have to use the vegan egg, I expect that you would use it very rarely, and it's probably not going to affect your health. But if you're trying to just maintain the mantra, then it's easy just to not use the vegan egg and just avoid it. But I don't know what that kind of flour is. If it's just something ground up, maybe it's not that bad, but I don't know. It sounds kind of processed. But anyway, back to the process discussion. So I wanted to just say, because I've gotten the question, what is processed? And really, technically, processed is anything that you have done to modify the food at all. If I make pico, I'm processing the food into pico. If I make cheese sauce, I'm blending it up in the blender, that's processed. So what I try to do when I cook is I try to be the only one that's processed the food. Obviously, whole wheat pasta is technically processed. It so happens that when you cook it, it has pretty much the same calorie density as whole starches like potatoes and rice. So it's a pretty healthy processed starch, but it is not refined. It has to be whole wheat. Refined removes a part of the flour, a part of the wheat, and you're left with just junk that doesn't have any fiber, like white pasta. So that is kind of the general idea of process. So let's talk about tofu. Tofu is just soybeans ground up in soy milk. You're removing a lot of the fiber from that because you're straining out the soy milk from the solids. So there's something that's been removed, but it's pretty lightly processed. Then you add the coagulant and you thicken the soy milk up into a block of tofu. So that's how tofu is made. It is kind of processed. It's a pretty healthy food that is processed, but I would still only make it a condiment. Like you add a little bit to the dish that you're making. If you're making a stir fry or something like that, it shouldn't be tofu with vegetables. It should be vegetables with a little bit of tofu. And if you're just going nuts and eating tofu because you think you need the protein or something like that, I think you're making a mistake, and you should reduce your tofu intake. And it's also higher in fat. If you're watching me, then you're probably interested for some weight loss reasons, because that's what I talk about a lot, and that's what we talk about in Well Your World. And tofu isn't great for weight loss because it is much more calorie dense than whole starches or non-starchy vegetables. Let's move on. So then there's what? Seitan. Seitan is, I don't like seitan. I feel like it's way more processed, even though I guess technically it doesn't seem from intuition that it's any more processed than tofu. But I guess, first of all, what's happening is it's vital wheat gluten. So it's a processed wheat product that you buy in a bag, and you then add water and spices and oftentimes a lot of salt, like soy sauce and things like that. A lot of the store-bought ones have oil, so they're just automatically off limits, but there are some that don't have oil but are still usually high in sodium. If you're making it yourself, you can obviously leave the sodium and the oil out very easily, but it's still this processed reductionist flour that you've added water and you've turned into seitan. So I really don't like it. Tofu, I've made tofu from scratch many, many times. Lately I haven't done it because of time constraints, and tofu is so cheap to buy. It's like $1 for a block of tofu. So it is hard to be motivated to make your own tofu. But for a while I was doing it myself. And it's a very simple process. I've never made vital wheat gluten myself, but I don't feel like it's a very simple process. I know it's like dunking wheat over and over in a tub of water to remove all of the starch so that you're left with just the gluten, but I've never done it and I don't eat it anymore. So that's my 2 cents on it. Does that mean that if you are eating it, that you are unhealthy? I don't know, probably not, especially if you eat it only as a condiment. But I see people eating like a block of seitan and chopping it up like sausage and putting it on crackers with dip and all this stuff. And that is just not a healthy way to be eating it. But if you're crumbling up and adding it a little bit to your stir fry, like I said with tofu, then maybe it's not that unhealthy. Again, calorie density is probably higher in calorie density and thus not all that great for weight loss. What are the other ones? Soy curls. Soy curls are ground up soybeans. I believe nothing's been removed, unlike tofu, which comes from soy milk, which obviously has some fiber removed. I think soy curls are actually whole soybean ground up and then dehydrated. It is obviously higher in calorie density and fat because it's just a lot of soy. So if you're using it as a meat replacement, again, that's a problem. Nothing should replace meat except whole starches. And so if you're using it to add to a dish, like sometimes I'll throw soy curls in my starch blaster, that's kind of a nice little treat to get a little bit more calories in it and some richness of flavor if you're not interested in the weight loss, you know, to avoid the soy curls. So there's something there for soy curls. What was the other one? Tempeh. Tempeh is whole soybeans cooked, mixed with the bacteria that ferments and all of that good stuff. So tempeh is super whole, but it follows the same rules as all the soy products. You should use it as a condiment. It's higher in fat and calorie density, and you don't need all of the protein, so don't be like filling your face with tempeh just to get a bunch of protein, unnecessary. But it is a nice treat on top of things, or to make a tempeh lettuce tomato sandwich once in a while, which probably has bread, which is also really high in calorie density, so be careful with bread. These are treat things. We don't eat them very much in this house. It's just for the odd weekend breakfast or something like that. So I hope that helps as far as the processed food question. But yeah, I use that word processed very liberally because I am processing food. When I put food into the canner, I am processing that in the canner. What else? That's pretty much it. If you dehydrate food, you're processing it. If I freeze dry food, I'm processing it. So really just anything that you've taken whole food and you've affected it in some way, cooked it, whatever, that is technically processing food. Let's move on. Kelly, what is the best college degree path for getting into the solar industry 4 years from now? 4 years from now. Well, who knows what'll be happening 4 years from now, but I can tell you the solar will still be strong one way or another, somewhere. It'll still be strong, hopefully, in Arizona, even though Arizona's solar policies are pathetic, controlled by our utility monopolies. We have not experienced the solar growth that we absolutely should here in the desert, where there is nothing but sun. Anyway, to answer your question, well, maybe a good way to answer your question is to tell you how I did it and then what I would maybe do differently now. When I went to school, I went to the U of A in Tucson, Arizona, University of Arizona, and I studied electrical engineering. That's my main degree. And I also have a minor degree in computer engineering. I have a minor degree in mathematics, and I have a minor degree in the Spanish language. None of which is necessarily great for the solar industry, which I'm in. Electrical engineering is. I was able to do a lot on my own that I would have had to sub out to an engineer, like my design drawings and stuff like that for my solar system installations. I was able to do all of the design work myself. So that is absolutely a benefit. But it depends what you want to do. If I could do it again, there is at ASU, Arizona State University in Tempe, Arizona, there is a program, or a school I should say, called the Global Institute of Sustainability, and they have some really cool sustainability related degree paths. And I bet you these kinds of ideas are popping up at other universities as well. That could be really cool for just getting into sustainability in general and probably specifically solar industry related or wind related or any number of different technologies. They probably focus on more of like an MBA style, like a business administration sort of angle to those things. I remember when I started at the U of A, they were just starting to experiment with a degree that was a mix of an MBA and engineering all in one degree. I didn't do that because it still seemed new, and I always thought in my head that business administration was something I could teach myself, and sure enough, I have, and it's worked to the extent that I'm doing it. So I didn't pursue that degree, but there are a lot of degrees. It depends. Like engineering is very specific. That means that you want to straight up engineer solar, and there are so many more facets to the solar industry than just being an engineer. So maybe depending on what you want to do, it could be something more general, and then maybe you wanted to get really specific in a master's program or something like that. I'm not saying that in order to get into the solar industry, you need to go to university. Let me first be clear on that. I think that you could get into the solar industry just by going and getting a job for some sort of a solar company, whether it's a solar manufacturer or an integrator like me, or any number of different areas in solar. So don't be afraid to just go start at the bottom and move up, especially if during study, because university is so expensive now. I can't imagine doing it without making money at the same time, working nights or weekends or something to keep afloat. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Renee asks, what are some staple items that I should stock in the pantry, fridge, freezer? Things that are a must to make cooking easier. Okay, well, why don't I just go to the pantry? And hopefully it's not a disaster. Okay, the pantry. So here are mostly all the spices we used. We use very little tahini, by the way. I mean, I do consider tahini to be oil-free, even though it's sesame seeds ground up, which are obviously pretty oily. But we don't use it much. Crushed red pepper, I use a lot of that. Curry, I use a lot of that. Granulated garlic, pepper, these are just all the spices. You're probably not asking about this. Italian seasoning, this is just chili, pepper, onion. Oh my gosh, I love this. This is that dehydrated veggie blend that I put in the starch blaster and many other things that has dehydrated onions, carrots, celery, and a few spices. Totally sodium free, oil free, all that. Soy milk, I used to make soy milk myself all the time, and I just haven't been lately. There's really no excuse, but I like this one because it is just filtered water and soybeans. There's no added sweeteners or any junk like that. So if we drink soy milk, it's only the totally plain soy milk. Down here, we've got just more spices, nutritional yeast. This is some freeze-dried basil. What is this? Sesame seeds, coriander, apple cider vinegar, rice vinegar. Those are kind of the main things. I do have some soy sauce. We don't use very much soy. It looks like we use a lot of soy sauce, but I just like to buy it in bulk at Costco because you get the best price. But we don't use a whole lot of soy sauce. What else is down here? Here's a little silken tofu. I don't usually buy it in these containers. My mom had this and gave it to me. These are the little pepitas, the little pumpkin seeds that we put in the oatmeal. Flax seeds, chia seeds. Down here is where I got all the starches. Rice, bay leaves, here's red lentils, the 13 bean mix. This is green split peas. What do we got? Black beans, some whole wheat pasta, popcorn. I love air popping popcorn. We don't actually do it all that often, but I do like doing it. Old-fashioned oats, green lentils, garbanzo beans. So these are where I have all of the starches. Did I miss anything? Some more beans back there and the like. Here I've got some of these. If I eat cereal in the morning, it's like this puffed corn that is seriously just puffed whole grain yellow corn. The kamut and the millet These we get at Sprouts, but they're just plain old cereal that is pretty handy. So those are the main staples here. Here's the little baking area. There's some dates, some vanilla, cinnamon, and that's pretty much all I really use here. Cornstarch, stuff like that. So you've seen it. Okay, let's check out the fridge. Some ground flax seeds. We grind up the flax seeds in small batches because, I don't know, they're fresher, I guess. Some minced garlic from Costco. Some pickles and pepperoncinis, which I don't eat that much of. Mushrooms, tomatoes, cabbage. Some chopped up salad, just ready to go. All you have to do is add, there's some beans in there too, yum. Elise did this. All you have to do is add some dressing or some balsamic or whatever. What do we have down here? Brussels sprouts, spinach, celery, all the fresh veggies are in here. And if there weren't fresh veggies, there would just be containers of prepped food in here. So that's kind of what's in the fridge. As far as the freezer, I don't actually do all that much freezer food. What do we have in the freezer? Like, I'll keep bread in the freezer, like the Dave's Killer Bread, because we don't eat very much bread, so the only way that bread would ever not go bad in this house would be to ensure that it stays in the freezer. Those are really the main things. Oh, I didn't show you down in the bottom of the pantry. I have a big basket with potatoes and a big basket of onions. Those are the other two items that we store in there. And those get eaten a lot. Next question, Kristen. What are your favorite foods to take with you when you travel? Well, usually it depends how we travel. If we're flying, then the food we take is just for the travel portion of the trip, and it would just be like cooked potatoes, a bag of cooked potatoes that are cold or whatever, and then we'll grab, once you get through, you can take the potatoes through security, and then once you get through security, you can bum the salsas or hot sauces in the little packets from the fast food, junk food restaurants in the terminal. That's one little flying tip that we often use. Other than that, you can bag up some chopped up veggies and stuff like that just to keep you munching. So when you're bored and you get an appetite, you don't go over to the magazine store and buy a bunch of junk food. So that's, I guess, what we usually do on the airplane. But if we're traveling like camping and stuff, obviously we prep our own food and we'll take a cooler with all our food, mostly prepped for like a car camping trip. But what are you asking when we travel? Like what is, but I guess when we get somewhere, like when we're staying in a hotel or something, usually we'll try to do an Airbnb because you can get a kitchen and then we can just go to a little market and grab some things and cook in the room. We'll often go to some vegan restaurants when we travel as just a rare occasion. It would be nice if they were oil-free and healthy, but they probably aren't usually. But it's pretty rare that we eat at those kinds of places, but I'll be honest, it happens. But if you're really wanting to be strict when you travel and you're trying to, be totally careful, and because you're trying to just stay away from anything bad because it could trigger you or whatever, then you want to travel somewhere where there's an Airbnb. You can take some of your own starches or spices, I guess. You can buy most of your starches there. But I mean, if you have the space in your luggage, you can haul your own beans and rice and things like that. I'm working on freeze drying food, right? So I've been thinking about freeze drying simple things like cheese sauce, so that you can take your own cheese sauce and you can just rehydrate it and you don't have to be hardcore cooking. Then you could just boil some potatoes and add cheese sauce to it if you were traveling. Or gravy, or any kind of a salad dressing or something that you could rehydrate and take with you and travel, because you're not going to go to a market and get all the stuff to make cheese sauce or stuff to make your own salad dressing or things like that. That just seems like too much work to me. So if you had access to these kinds of freeze-dried things that I want to make, that could definitely facilitate. Otherwise, if you don't have that, because I am not selling it yet, then you could just go to a market and eat kind of bare bones and simple starches and a bottle of balsamic vinegar and that'll get you through a few days pretty easy. So hope that helps. Sandy, I had a heart attack January 2017. Since then, I went whole food, plant-based, SOS free with occasional added maple syrup, wine, nuts, and avocado. I've lost 65 pounds and I'm still losing. I'm within 5 pounds of the goal. I'm eating a lot more starch to slow down my weight loss, and I'm still losing faster than I ever would have expected. I want to lose this last 5 pounds slower and then maintain. What changes would you suggest? Thank you for doing another video. Okay. So sounds like you've got it figured out. You're eating more starches. You're probably getting more full and satiated from all of the starches, and you've increased your calorie density, so you've likely slowed your weight loss because of that. You usually, as long as you're eating and you're not just like trying to lose weight by depriving yourself of whole starches, you're probably going to just level off. If you're eating the food that makes you feel comfortable and full, and you're not consciously choosing to not eat things because you're trying to lose more weight than you normally would, then you're probably just gonna level off where you should. It sounds like you're already eating some nuts and avocado, things like that, so you're not totally removing all of the overt fats, which is fine, but that should allow you to level off at a number. I didn't choose the weight that I settled on. I became worried when I was losing weight so quickly. I lost like 15 pounds in a month, and another 15 in another month, or 10 in another month. I was down like 25 pounds. I got down to as much as 30 pounds. I was weighing around 150 to 155. Now I'm close to 170. So your weight is dictated by the food that you're eating, generally speaking. And so if you're eating the way that you want to eat and you're at your goal weight, or you might end up a little bit below your goal weight. A lot of people pick a goal weight thinking that it's a good goal weight because it sounds crazy compared to what they weigh now. But often your goal weight is actually heavier than what your body is going to level off at. At least that's what happened for me and several other people I know that were like, yeah, I'm gonna stop at 150 or whatever, and they end up at 140 and they're like, I thought I was just gonna lose forever, and they just finally leveled off. That is what happened to me. I was really, really strict because I was in a very experimental phase where I was doing different things every month, testing this diet out. Like, I wanted to know this was legit. And so I was going up and down, and I leveled off at like 155, and I was thin. And then I ate more overt fats again, and I came back up. Now I'm lifting weights and trying to fill my mouth with as much food and whole starches as I possibly can, and I've gotten back up to almost 170. But that took a lot of work for me to get back up. Like, I have to eat a lot of food. This is not calorie dense food, and I don't just fill my face with avocados and nuts all the time. So I get a lot of calories from starches, and so to gain the weight as I have, it was definitely tricky. And I'm lifting a lot of weights. I'd like to think I will make a progress video of my weightlifting, even though I'm a little bit shy about that. But I will make one, and I've made some pretty significant gains. I know, look at my arms. They're tiny. I don't have big muscles. But I have, compared to my before pictures, gained a lot of muscle. So I'm encouraged by that, and I'm going to keep doing it. So that's really how it works. Watch my calorie density videos. You probably already have. I need to make a new calorie density video so the material you can hear it new over and over a different way. It's the same idea, just said a different way another time. I'll make a new one, but I've got at least 2 out there that you can watch that I will link to, that are very good descriptions of just how calorie density works, how your weight loss works, and just how to do it. But anyway, it sounds like you've pretty well got it under control, really. And that's great. I'm glad you've made such an amazing recovery since a heart attack just about a year ago. That's fantastic. Jennifer, how can we incorporate more salads and raw foods? I don't really do recipes for that stuff because I incorporate a lot of the non-starchy veg into my starch-based dishes. You've seen that in many of my videos. but I don't really like have recipes for the raw or salad type of items, because it's just chop up a bunch of veggies like you would see from any salad bar and then put some sort of dressing on it. Elise loves to make one that's an avocado based, blended up with various spices and garlic. I like to make one that's balsamic based with spices and garlic. So I would like to make some salad dressings freeze dried. That would be really simple. Just add water and put it in one of those little bullet blenders and blend it up and you're ready to go. That could be really cool, helpful for people that are trying to eat more salads and raw foods. I'm also gonna grow microgreens. After I went to the farm training that I put a video up about, they were doing microgreens and it's just so easy, and I've got all this solar power, takes up very little space, so if I can find somebody to buy my microgreens, then that'd be cool to make a little money off of it. And it's really, really nutrient dense, low calorie dense, calorie dilute food. So no calories, but lots of nutrients in microgreens. So you could eat microgreens too, but you don't need to. You can just eat regular old salad bar items to get this stuff. And the best way, honestly, and I rely on Elise for this, is to just prep bags of salad like she did, or containers of undressed salad, where you just take all week eating a bowl of it with some balsamic on top and some freeze-dried basil is what I do, and you know, in a hurry. And so just to always have prepped veg ready in the fridge is going to make it a lot easier to get it down. So hopefully that helps. But I don't really have recipes that I use for that. It's just eat some salad and move on to the next thing. Where is Nick these days? I'm getting a lot of questions about where is Nick. Nick, if you're watching, now Nick has been busy and he's going to be back in around a month. I got him to commit to a month, and now I'm putting it in a video, so he is on record. In a month, hopefully we'll start doing our mukbangs again, alternating one on my channel, one on his channel, on and on. Chris, how does this way of eating solve once and for all the problem of binge eating or emotional eating? The best answer to that question is to watch the conditioned Cram video from Dr. Lisle, which I will link. He talks about emotional eating, binge eating, and he addresses it really succinctly. In essence, we've conditioned ourselves to fill our faces and then want it again the next day. And it's often high calorie dense junk foods that we're overeating on. And he addresses how you can go through a small period of, at the end of the day, you just have to stop doing it. And it comes down to cleaning your environment and understanding your psychology and our evolution and how these are playing a role in our desire to binge eat when we become accustomed to doing it. And so if you watch I'll link again his Clean Your Environment video that he does with Chef AJ, and also his conditioned Cram video, which I think he has a couple versions up now. I think he did one on one of the Dr. McDougall webinars with Gustavo. So I will link to that as well. That is the best answer to this question. Okay, next question. Carmel, we use a table sugar to activate yeast when making bread. Is this something we should change, and if so, how? Well, okay. That much sugar probably isn't a problem if it's just used to activate yeast. But the bigger issue is the bread probably. Bread is extremely calorie dense, depending on what kind of bread you're making. If it's not whole wheat, and most aren't, then you know it's refined as well. So bread is a good thing to avoid, especially if your reason is weight loss. If you're already at a healthy goal weight and your inner body is very healthy, then having a little bit of bread, even if it's white bread, once in a while is probably not going to hurt you. Most plain white bread has a little bit of added salt. Be aware of that. If that's a thing that you're avoiding, then continue to avoid it. I have white bread, I don't know, maybe a couple times a month. I don't think I've had it for at least a month or more lately. So it's not very common here. But anyway, that's the scoop on bread. I don't think it's the sugar that's as much of a problem as the refined carbs in the bread. Bobby, what are some good vegan wines? Well, that's okay. I don't want to make you feel bad about that question because it's a perfectly valid question. There are some vegan wines that you can look up. I know nothing about it. I really don't drink that much wine anymore. I drink alcohol, maybe I drink 5 to 7 drinks per month. So maybe I will have 1 or 2 drinks once a week, but probably not even that often anymore. I used to drink every day. Probably every day I would drink beer or whiskey every day before I made the changes, and before I lost the weight and before I got healthy. So the best answer to your question is there are none. You should absolutely not drink vegan wine. If you're just trying to be vegan and you're not concerned with health, then yeah, you should go after vegan wines as opposed to those that are not. But the best solution is to not drink any wine at all. And I actually have, this is you've heard me talk before about the Health Science magazine, which is put on by the National Health Association. Go to healthscience.org if you want to subscribe to the magazine. The last issue, I wrote a testimonial in the last issue, which I guess would have been called Fall 2017 because this is the Winter 2018 version. But anyway, this is a really good magazine. Before I talk about wine, because I wanted to address this red wine health myth, and maybe I'll just read it to you because it's a one-pager and I don't think they would mind if I did that. But this is a great magazine because it's one of the few vegan magazines that are actually about real health. This is an SOS-free magazine. Here is the conference is coming up in, June? June 29th to July 1st is the National Health Association Conference where Dr. Goldhammer will be, Dr. Furman, Dr. Lim, Dr. Kahn, Dr. Popper, lots of doctors. Kathy Fisher will be there. And I'm going with Nick to this conference. So if anybody wants to, I don't know, jam about something during a break or whatever, we're going to be hanging out. Anyway, the reason I brought this magazine up is because I wanted to read you Dr. Furman's one-pager about alcohol. Also, watch my interview with Dr. Klaper. I've just put up a little piece of that interview, a little snippet, where we talked about caffeine and alcohol. And pretty much you shouldn't drink alcohol if you want to be healthy. But here is the red wine myth by Dr. Furman. I'm going to just read it to you and hopefully not get in trouble. Dr. Furman writes, "We hear constantly that moderate consumption of alcohol, especially red wine, is beneficial for cardiovascular health. However, when it comes to cancer risk, any amount of alcohol is risky. A 2014 report by the International Agency for Research on Cancer concluded that there is no safe amount of alcohol when it comes to cancer risk. Alcohol is considered a cause of cancers of the mouth, pharynx, larynx, esophagus, colorectal, breast, and liver, and is also linked to other cancers. Red wine for heart health. Some of red wine's benefit is thought to be due to resveratrol, a phytochemical in grape skins that has anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects that may help protect against cardiovascular disease. However, the majority of the reduction in CVD, cardiovascular disease, risk is actually from the inhibition of blood clotting by the alcohol. At this point in time, it is unknown whether resveratrol provides additional benefits over the anticoagulation effects. But red wine is not the exclusive source of this phytochemical. Resveratrol is also in grapes, raisins, blueberries, cranberries, and peanuts. You can gain more health benefits from cardioprotective diet of phytochemical-rich plant foods than you will from an occasional glass of red wine. Regardless of whether resveratrol provides cardiovascular benefit, it is incorrect to think you are doing something good for your health when you drink red wine. Even light drinking increases the risk of several different types of cancer. After alcohol is ingested, the body metabolizes it into carcinogenic compound called acetaldehyde. I don't know what that is. Additional carcinogenic substances are present in alcoholic beverages such as arsenic, benzene, cadmium, formaldehyde, lead, ethyl carbamate, acrylamide, and aflatoxins. The evidence suggests that even light drinking, less than 1 drink a day, and alcohol-containing mouthwashes may be risky. That's good to know. Men versus women. Alcohol's effects are greater in women than men. This is especially important for women to know because there are gender differences in alcohol metabolism. The same amount of alcohol causes a greater blood alcohol level to be reached in females compared to males of the same weight. Alcohol consumption may also increase estrogen levels, which could further increase the breast cancer risk associated with alcohol consumption. How much? Less than 1 drink a day increases breast cancer risk, and more drinking amplifies the risk. Women who have 3 to 6 alcoholic drinks a week were found to have a 15% increase in breast cancer risk compared to non-drinkers, and 3 to 4 drinks per week is also associated with higher rates of breast cancer recurrence after diagnosis. Increased cancer risk due to light alcohol intake is not limited to breast cancer. A meta-analysis of studies on the relationship between light drinking and cancer risk estimated that light alcohol drinking is responsible for 5,000 deaths from oral and pharynx cancers, 24,000 deaths from esophageal squamous cell carcinoma, and 5,000 deaths from breast cancer worldwide each year. Importantly, the researchers found that this risk was dose-dependent, meaning the more you drink, the greater the risk. For health and longevity, the safe choice is to not drink alcohol at all. That is the Health Science magazine from the NHA. I'll put a link. Another magazine I really like. Again, it's hard to find vegan magazines that are not just bullshit. It's important to find a vegan magazine that is actually health conscious. Otherwise, you're just going to get a bunch of recipes that are going to pique your interest and cause you to eat something that you should absolutely not be eating because it was a special occasion for my kid's birthday or some other damn thing that you should absolutely not do. This was the other one that I found called Vegan Health and Fitness. I saw this magazine at one of the veg fests that we attended. And the link is vhfmag.com. I'll put a link in the description. But this one appears to be pretty health conscious as well. I don't believe they've talked about oil-free specifically that I've seen so far, but I could be wrong, and I've only received this one edition so far. But there were some recipes in here, and they are definitely oil-free. There is a cheese sauce to put on baked potatoes that is all whole food. Here's a creamy, dreamy cauliflower Alfredo sauce that is all whole food ingredients. It has a little bit of miso, which is okay for most people, unless you're totally avoiding salt. Some little flatbread pizzas. Uh-oh, this one looks like it might have some fake cheese on top. Throw it away. Throw the magazine away. I'm just kidding. Mostly the recipes look pretty good. And you know your stuff now. So if you see one that has a little oil, but my point here is it's a pretty healthy magazine from what I can tell. I have not read the whole thing yet. That is all I've got for today. I hope that you found the questions and answers helpful. And I'll see you on the next video. I do ask that you please do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and get active in the Facebook group. The Facebook group is awesome because it's people that started in the same place where I started, not understanding this, not knowing where to go for real information. And Well Your World, I make it a point to keep it from becoming any kind of BS group with haters and trolls, none of that. And oil posts and stuff like that, I would crack down pretty hard on that. If there's a restaurant post in the group, you better say that it is oil free, because otherwise we all know it probably isn't. But anyway, the group is a place for people to come together, get support, talk about their progress, talk about their struggles, listen to other people respond to some of their progress or struggles and tell their own stories, and just get on the same page. To find a group of people that is actually like-minded about health isn't easy out in the real world. We have to do it virtually sometimes. And so I think it is a really helpful group for a lot of people that don't have friends and family that adhere to the same strict diet and lifestyle that they do. So anyway, I've been really happy with how things have progressed in the group and the really nice conversations that we're all having. So that is all for now. I'll see you on the next video. Again, like and subscribe. The future is vegan. Bye.